Thanks to the sponsor for this episode, Pinky Promises. Pinky Promises is the first picture book from Senator Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren's Pinky Promises became a hallmark of her 2020 presidential campaign, and this new picture book captures the hope and determination of those promises. The book is the inspiring story of Polly. Polly is discouraged by her uncle, brother, and neighbor when she offers to help them. They tell her that's not what girls do. But then one day, Polly meets a woman who's running for president, and they make a pinky promise to remember all the things that girls do. Polly learns that she's strong and capable at school and on the soccer field, and she's even inspired to run for class president. Pinky Promises encourages young readers to dream big. Get your copy of Pinky Promises wherever books are sold.
So about 6 months ago, I stopped working full-time at Motherly. You may know I'm the co-founder of Motherly. We started Motherly about 6.5, going on 7 years ago. And in that time, I had 2 little kids when we started, and now I have 4. My life has been wonderful and exciting, but also incredibly demanding. Every year it has felt like, since I became a mom, I was adding more and more responsibilities. But maybe about a year ago, I realized in reflecting with my husband that it was all going by so fast, and I wanted more time with my family to enjoy it. So about 6 months ago, I shifted from full-time work to part-time work. I've loved it. I've never not worked full-time as a mother. And yet, what's been so interesting to me is how many things have filled that time. There's this line in a song, Redefining Women, that the High Women sing. The line is about women and mothers and all that we manage in our families and our communities. And the line is full-time living on a half-time schedule. And when you hear this line from this song, that is how it feels. Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Motherly Podcast, where we have honest conversations about modern motherhood. I am Liz Tennedy. I'm the co-founder of Motherly, and I'm a mother of 4 myself. And welcome back to another season of the Motherly Podcast. We're going to be exploring a whole host of topics that are really applicable to the lives that we live now. As modern mothers, we're going to be talking to a lot of amazing women. I'm really happy you're here with us. And this week, I'm excited to speak with 2-time Grammy Award winner, Natalie Hemby. Natalie has written some of your favorite songs by Lady Gaga, Casey Musgraves, Sheryl Crow, Kelly Clarkson, Miranda Lambert, and many more. In 2019, she joined the quartet The High Women alongside Brandi Carlile, Amanda Shires, and Maren Morris. And now she also has a new solo album out, Pins and Needles. It's her second album and produced by her husband, with whom she shares a daughter. Natalie talked to me about the challenges that she had navigating a career peak right after the birth of her daughter. And she also talked about the beauty and the challenges that come with raising an only child, and explained why she thinks more mothers need to accept that they cannot do it all. Natalie Hemby, welcome to the Motherly Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I could talk for days about this. So
Amazing. Well, let's dive in. I always like to anchor the beginning of this interview with the transformation of motherhood. So I'm curious, when you look back on your time as a mother so far, how do you think becoming a mother changed you, your lifestyle, your identity, your worldview?
Well, it definitely has made me probably more fearless as far as not afraid to question things and that sort of thing. For the longest time, I didn't think I could be a mother. So I tried for 7 years to get pregnant, and literally as a Hail Mary, I mean, my husband and I, we had a baby naturally. So we were very fortunate in that. I didn't have to go through in vitro or anything like that. But I was getting used to the idea of this is either not going to happen or I'm going to have to adopt, which I was totally fine with. But I had Sammy Joe, and I had a great pregnancy, but it was sort of a rough delivery, and I had a long time of healing. And for me, the roughest part was my hormones changed my physical being. I'm a creative person. So for me, writing songs was really tough because I just had a massive brain fog because my body's trying to heal itself and also be a mother on top of that. Honestly, I kind of put on this hat of pretending like everything was okay, but everything was not okay. I was having a really hard time when you don't have any sleep and you have this person who needs every bit of your attention. And I just had one. You've had four. So when you have that and then you're supposed to devote all your creative attention to some sort of career that you've built up, it's a very big challenge. And I wouldn't say I was great at it at times, but I just try to give myself a lot of grace. And I love being a mother.
You brought so many things up there. Many of our listeners themselves have also gone through different challenges with infertility, secondary infertility. You described this moment of almost coming to peace with the fact that maybe biological motherhood might not happen for you. What did you tell yourself in those moments? And how did that story rewrite itself?
Whenever it's disappointing for so long, it's almost like you slowly let go of the dream. And it's like a slow, gradual breakup. And it's really painful. And then you slowly let it go. And then you're like, maybe this isn't what I was supposed to be. Maybe I'm not supposed to be a mother. And that's a very hard thing for a woman to admit or to have to go through. Because I do have friends who can't have children and they have such deep motherly instincts and they want their own. But all this to say, whenever I found I was pregnant, I was going through kind of a rough time in my life. And so was my husband. We weren't exactly getting along. There was nothing wrong with either person, but we were kind of at each other. So when I got pregnant, I literally took 4 pregnancy tests and gave it to him and was like, we have some things to talk about. And he started crying and I started crying. And it just sort of, I don't know, there's this part of me that thinks that all of our agitation was the fact that we were just trying to be parents and we couldn't. And it's sort of like we just didn't know what to do with that. And so when we finally became parents, we both just let all of that stuff go and moved forward. So it was a really beautiful thing.
You also brought up the impact that motherhood has had on your creative side. So I want to talk a little bit to start about just your journey in songwriting. And you certainly grew up in a musical family, but when did you realize this power of songwriting?
I wasn't like as young as someone like Taylor Swift. I mean, there's a lot of kids these days who are very young, like Billie Eilish, who are very insightful and so in tune with their feelings. Back when I was growing up, it was just like, oh, I really like that song. I mean, I just liked, I don't know, I was kind of a stupid kid, and I just didn't really pay attention to how songs were written. But as I got into college, I started listening more intently and I started writing my own songs and that sort of thing. And then Barbara Orbison, who is Roy Orbison's wife, she signed me to my first publishing deal. But it was so funny. I'd write these songs and I'd look up at her when I'd play them for her and she'd be in tears. And I didn't know that songs could be that impactful. Of course, I felt those tears in my own way, but I didn't know a song that I could write could make somebody cry. So that's just been my goal ever since, is to make people cry. Make them feel their feelings.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wonder in your own words if you can describe what you think songwriting, but also music as an art form does for the human experience. What can it kind of uniquely offer?
Music is so powerful. It's sort of like a mind control, if you will. I don't take that lightly. You have such power in your hands of changing a room and changing the temperature of a room. I like feel good songs for that very reason. And I like sad songs for that reason too. They just help us get into our feelings, if you will, and maybe sort them out.
Definitely. So you've been famously writing hit songs for many popular artists, but where were you in your career when you became a mother and sort of moved into being more front and center?
Well, I have another writer friend named Jessie Alexander, and she said, babies bring good luck. Just watch out. I literally had Sammy Joe, and I only had one number one in country music, and it was my first single, and it went number one. And then I had another top 10, but I just hadn't had a lot of stuff on my plate. And I promise you, after I had her, it was just like it all came up knocking at my door at once. And It was both wonderful and infuriating because I'm like, I've had all this time to be doing this as a single person. I was so frustrated because I was like, really? You're calling me now? And, I'm a very spiritual person, and I feel like God was forcing me to go, okay, this is where you have to choose between what is important to you. And it's like, I feel like God gave me back all my dreams, but he still made me have to choose as an adult. Hey, are you going to spend more time with your kid? Or are you going to spend more time in your music? And I had a hard time with that. I had to learn how to say no. And it's been the best tool in my toolbox because you cannot, as a mother, don't let anybody lie to you. You cannot do everything. You just can't. You can't do everything, and you can't do everything well at the same time. And you have got to learn how to say no to the outside things because, you get your kids for 18 years, really, if you're lucky. And it does go by so fast.
You also earlier, you brought up an interesting point around motherhood and creativity. You talked about how when you first became a mom, you experienced, among many other things, brain fog, mom brain. I still have it pretty bad. It's kind of a running joke in our family with 4 kids and 2 dogs. Because to your point, we are redesigning women. We are managing so many aspects of our communities, our own lives, our own identities. And it's all kind of running in the background. I love actually what you said, though, about how so much of this as a mother and reconciling a career is about what we say no to. I think that's really important. I'm curious if new motherhood was so challenging and even psychologically, neurologically difficult for you, how did you learn to put boundaries on, how to say no in a way that also freed you to do the creative work? Because creative work, you cannot be burned out and be creative. I know that for sure. So how did you start to rebuild how you worked as a new mom?
Well, I'll tell you one thing I did was I drank just an enormous amount of coffee. I did not get a lot of sleep, and I had to make time for it. It's like the child came first, and then you make time. If you really want to do your career, you have to make time for it and also have a great husband. My husband's been very supportive and very helpful. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how single moms do it, honestly, or single dads, but I would stay up super late and I would write late at night after she went to bed. I mean, her going to bed for me was like, she had to go to bed at this time because I need this time to work. I had to compartmentalize everything. Now, I had a few breakdowns, and there were times where I said yes to things, and I just learned a really hard lesson of that was a waste of time. All I did was think about my kid, and I wish I hadn't done that. And I just learned from it and moved on.
So is there a new standard, I guess, that you learned to apply when you kind of went off course and when you would say no to things? How would you make a hard decision if an opportunity is worth pursuing versus what you would have to sacrifice in your motherhood?
When you're in music, when you're starting off, you take every possible opportunity. It's almost like if you want to own a restaurant, you have to start it in washing dishes, And that includes like writing with somebody who's brand new, who's probably never written before, but everyone thinks they have a great voice. Or it means playing this writer's round. So all these charitable people who are coming to this charitable event can see you. It's sort of like getting your name out there. Well, I finally started getting the fun gigs and I had to say no because if it wasn't work, I had to say no to it. I had to go, I can't do it. That sounds like fun. I'm so glad it would be all expense paid trip, but I can't do that. Or if I'm writing like already 4 days a week and there's a new girl who just got signed to Sony and she's amazing, it's like, well, you know what? I'm going to have to see if I can write with her another week. I just can't do it this week. I just had to try to spread it all out and go, no, this isn't going to work. Yes, this is going to work. You have to almost have a bird's eye view of it all to see what's really worth it. Now, I took one of those trips. All I did was miss my kid, wish I was home. And I just realized, okay, I don't need to do this anymore. And this is like on the really sweet side of life. I know mothers who are struggling, who can't say no to things because they have to work to pay for their families. And the weird part about all of this is that success and also the struggle for success are very similar. You have to learn what to do in order to get that nice balance. Because I'm telling you, being successful is very hard too. You've got to learn how to deal with all these different avenues. It's like all of a sudden you get everything dropped in your lap and you're like, which way do I go? You know, and it's overwhelming.
Well, it's another related question I think many modern mothers face, which is how do you decide what to say yes to? So, for example, something that I personally do is I say, in the long term, would I regret not doing X? And that has helped me say yes and no to things.
I almost would rephrase it though, like, is this really worth you not spending time with your kid? You know what I'm saying? If you've been spending a lot of time with your child and you've got this great opportunity and it would really benefit your whole entire family, well, then obviously, if you have help and you can do it, you should take it. I just feel like to each question, it's all different. But I do feel like at the end of the day, I'm like, is this beneficial to my family? Do we really need this right now? Or do I need to be at home? Do I need to be there because financially it's something that's really incredible for everybody? Or do I need to be here right now because it's good for everybody soul wise? That's kind of what I go by. And don't get me wrong, I've missed out on some really awesome things. So, but I don't really regret it.
And we know that not all of our listeners, probably most of them are not songwriters, but they do have to make really hard choices, right? Careers that they've worked decades to build versus the needs of their family and their own desires.
Yes.
Maybe a different playing field, but it's the same situation that many listeners find themselves in. I also want to talk a little bit about your relationship with your daughter. You've said it goes so fast. I know that's true. It's a cliche and it's true. I watched a beautiful video of you and your daughter performing a song together. I guess I'm curious, as a mother with a daughter, how that relationship has blossomed over the past decade and how you view it now.
Man, I could almost start crying because she really is a miracle. And Sammy Jo, when she was born, she came shooting out like a cannon. Literally, the doctor had to catch her because that is how she is. I always tell my friends who have 4 kids, I have lots of friends who have 4 kids. I'm like, you have a lot of kids and my kid is a lot. I have just one. My daughter, though, is so vivacious and very smart. She always has been. She's such an outgoing person. And I was a very outgoing kid too. But she is not afraid of life, not afraid of people, not afraid to take the bull by the horns. And it's been so much fun because as she's gotten older, we've become close like friends. Now we're going through girl stuff and we talk about all these different scenarios. And I always tell her, I'm like, she leans on me heavily. And I'm like, I am your friend. I am the person that if you need to talk to, you can come to me about anything. And I am your keeper of all your innermost fears and secrets and everything. I'm your mom and nobody will love me more than you. That's what I tell her. And she's really taken to that within the last few years. We talk about girl drama. We talk about all kinds of things. But the thing that I love about her is because she's my only child, and I did write a song called My Only Child, but we talk one-on-one about a lot of different scenarios. And I tell her a lot about what fame is and what it is not and what is real, what is not. And I'm so happy that I'm able to do that because in the 80s and 90s, it was a different time. We did not have cell phones and parents were gone on the road. They called from payphones and hotels. You didn't have FaceTime. You couldn't take your kids out on the road with you. It was just a different time. And now you can. But it's like back then, I just even look at all the Britney Spears things back in those days. Nobody told kids about, hey, fame can absolutely destroy your soul. And you have to protect what's within you. And I have these really candid conversations with her about all of this sort of thing. Because she'll ask me, she's like, is that person nice? We'll go through the list of celebrities who are nice. And most of them are. But I'm like, if they're not nice, it's probably because they have a lot of things going on inside. But the thing I'm scared to death of as a mom is because she's my only kid, I want her to go through parenthood and I want to be around for that. You know, I want to help her. And I'm just praying that every day that God will allow me to live that long because I am quite a bit older.
I know many grandparents, my own parents included, who feel that that experience of being a grandparent is somehow even better than parenthood because you love them just as much, but you don't have quite that responsibility. You also brought some interesting points up around the unique relationship that you have, given that your daughter is an only child. You know, we live in this culture that has a lot of stereotypes and taboos and mean connotations about being an only child. How do you talk to her about that, or how do you see that question, which is increasingly popular for people to have one child by choice?
We just really try to work with her. When they're little, it's like sharing is a problem, because they don't have anybody they're always sharing with. But one way I would say for me that really worked out well, I did have a nanny who I just adored. Our friend Lauren, she was like a second mom, like an auntie to Sammy Joe, and she would take her on play dates. I would take her on play dates. But really, I think what really helps is preschool is really amazing for that, especially for only children, because they are forced to be in an environment where they have to make friends, they have to share with other kids, and they get rewarded for it, that sort of thing. But when they're older, the thing that's hard is that sometimes I'll tell her, I'm like, you cannot talk to me that way. I am not your sister. I am your mother. And that is really a thing. It's like she almost treats Mike and I like we're older brother and sister. and we're like, you don't talk to us that way. We are your parents. And there is a separation. So there is this thing where we all fight with each other. We get on each other's nerves. I'm like, don't talk to me that way. She's like, well, you are talking to me that way. That's the thing about an only child is you do have a different sort of dynamic between your child and the parents, where when you have siblings, it's like, mom's going to get mad at you. It's like mom and dad are like the people, you know what I mean? But with an only child, not so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about My Only Child and maybe get a little bit more into your current work, certainly with the Highwomen. There's so much to talk about, but I think one of the things that kind of most stands out to me is how deliberate you are in helping to get women's stories and points of view into the mainstream within country music. I've read other interviews where you talked about just how few women's songs make it into the top country music charts
today.
Frustrating. Tell me about what is going on in the culture, perhaps, that has made that so, and why you're so focused on representing 50% of the population here.
There were so many great women, obviously Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, just like women in country music. Even in the 90s, they played more women in country music. It was Reba and Faith and Martina. But for some reason, within the last decade, there was just this downslide of like, they were making women like, you have to be this, you have to be that. We need this to sound this way. And then also taking away their identities in the process. They basically just kind of wanted you to be a wallflower for the longest time. And there's so many women who are in country music that I know who are so strong. And it's very frustrating because there's just more to say. But what happens is whenever things become a business, it becomes like, okay, well, this really worked, this party song. We love partying. We all like to drink beer. Let's put out 50 of these songs, It's about making money, and I get it. But I'm also like, there's a population out there with also a soul. And I feel like people want to hear different music. It's like what we were talking about earlier. Music reminds you of yourself. And I feel like for me, you know what? I know a lot of people out there who can't have kids or they can't have a second kid. So I had to write My Only Child. I was mourning the fact that I couldn't have a bigger family. I went through Sammy Joe's things. It was like I was dying. I was like mourning the fact that it went by so fast and that this is the only one. Where I have friends who have lots of children and they can't wait to get rid of stuff. And I don't blame them because it just starts piling up through the years. But it is when you have one, it's like it is the first and the last of everything. Man, it really hits you in a different way. My daughter was always asking me, can I have a brother and sister? Because she's such a outgoing kid and she always wants to be around lots of kids. I just told her, I'm like, honey, it's just not going to happen. But you know what? I said, you're going to get all the bit of love and attention from me and your dad. And I said, and honestly, I don't think I could love anything more than you, anyways. And that's kind of where that song came from. It's sort of like me explaining to her, look, I'm so sorry. I can't give you another brother or sister, but I can give you everything that I have and love you. And I can't tell you how many letters I've gotten from women.
Is there another song about that super common experience? Just the idea, right, that you're representing something that's so common and yet so underrepresented. That doesn't surprise me that you've heard from a lot of people who feel so seen through what you're doing. Similarly, I just want to chat a bit about Redesigning Women, which also has a fabulous music video, which is very cathartic to watch. Really like an anthem for the modern woman. What lines within that song perhaps most speak to you and your motherhood journey over the last decade?
Lord. Honestly, I think it's every line. I mean, full-time living on a half-time schedule, that is like my life and every mother's life. I don't know any mother who's not busy. I mean, I have friends that I try to get together with and like, well, we have a meeting, we got kids' soccer games. Impossible. It's because you're living on their time and your own. So that first line just gets me right off the bat. Always trying to make everybody feel special is also another one because, you know, I have gone through these periods where I'll just disappear from some of my friends' radars because I'm just really busy trying to, you know, be a great wife, trying to be a great mom, trying to be a great writer. And then I have to put the friends on the back burner for a while. And then sometimes I need to put my friends on the front burner for a minute so I can get my sanity back. It just all switches around. You're always trying to make everybody feel special. It is true. Everybody comes to you. They need to talk to you about this. And you just have to be emotionally available all the time. And sometimes you just want to cry in the shower.
And also the lines, I mean, for me, just how do we do it halfway right and halfway wrong? I know I have this idea that like other people are doing it better or perfectly, or it was better in the good old days, but just not true.
It's not.
And even what you're saying about, you know, mothers and women in particular being there to help people feel seen.
You know, we all have to figure out how we do it individually. I have a friend who literally has the ability to have practically a live-in nanny, and it looks like she just has all her stuff together. But the truth of the matter is, my friend, even though she got all this help, little Junior takes a Sharpie pen to the white furniture and she or you get stuck on a 9-hour flight and you got a kid who's sick and screaming. Those are just appearances is what I'm trying to say. We are all just doing the best we can.
What about in raising Sammy Joe? Do you have like a mission statement as a family or one sort of guiding hope that you're always kind of coming back to? This is what I'm really trying to teach her and give her.
I always think about, you know, maybe this is because of COVID and we're in a period, our family is, we'll be losing some loved ones within recent years, hopefully not too soon. But I always try to teach her, for me, this is what I teach her. They're going to feel sometimes like God has abandoned you and he's not real, but he's very real and he's very present and miracles are still happening every single day, even if you don't see them every single day. And I always tell her, I just don't ever want her to stop believing in God and always have her faith. That's grounded me and it's kept me sane all of these years. I've had some friends who have been through some really rough times and I've seen miracles in people's lives. And I just really want her to look for those miracles in her own life.
Those are big ones. Natalie Hemby, thank you so much for joining us today on the Motherly Podcast.
Thank you so much, and love to all you mothers out there.
We hope you were inspired by Natalie's story. And for all our listeners who want their kids to dream big too, check out the new picture book by Senator Elizabeth Warren titled Pinky Promises. Elizabeth Warren's Pinky Promises became a hallmark of her 2020 presidential campaign. This heartwarming picture book features the story of a young girl, Polly, who is encouraged by a woman running for president to remember all the amazing things that girls can do. Polly carries that promise with her at school, onto the soccer field, and even into an election for class president. The book reminds us all that you can do whatever you set your mind to. That's a pinky promise. Get your copy of Pinky Promises wherever books are sold.
So what's been different since I went from working full-time to working part-time?
Probably that the only time that you've actually been doing things has been on Fridays, like today, when you have to do the podcast. Other than that, it's just that we see you a lot more.
Do you like seeing me a lot more?
I do.
Oh. Why do you like seeing me a lot more?
Because normally we're just really bored during the day.
So I'm your entertainment now?
In a way. Let's play football.
Okay.
Wait, is that for your podcast? You gotta edit that last part out. Come on.
What's different now that Mom is working part-time instead of full-time?
He changes James's diapers more. And he's drinking more espresso. And spending more time trying to binge watch Ted Lasso. They're already finished.
Yep, those are the differences. Well, that's it for our episode this week. Natalie, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for listening to our podcast. We'll be back next week with another amazing guest, so please tune in. As always, we would love it if you love the Motherly Podcast. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It takes about 30 seconds, but when you leave a review, it really helps other people discover our show. A lot of hard work goes into every episode, and we want every mother who could benefit from listening to the podcast to be able to find it. So if you could, take about 30 seconds, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. The Motherly Podcast is produced by Jennifer Bassett with audio engineering from Seaplane Armada. Our music is from the Blue Dot Sessions. I'm your host, Liz Kennedy. Thank you so much for listening.